Okay, hi everyone, welcome back. And in this update, we are going to talk about QNT's price chart and see what is going on in the short term. But before we get into all that good stuff, I'm gonna spend the first couple of minutes of today's update talking about this very important article written by Mr. Gilbert Verdian himself. And this was actually published right after Sibos 2025, which, by the way, in case you don't know, is actually one of the biggest global finance events. And the main point of this article is this: the entire world of finance is right now moving, I would say rather quickly, from talking about digital money to actually building it. And the interesting thing is that every single thing discussed in Sibos 2025 basically validates Quant's whole mission, and the way the industry right now is evolving is exactly the direction that QNT has been preparing for with its Overledger technology. So let's break this article down a little bit and talk about a couple of very important big takeaways. And I think the first one has to be about programmable money. You see, these days, money is no longer just something you send and receive. You are able to now turn money into something a bit smarter, and you can actually attach rules to it. I don't know, you can say, for instance, release these funds when a certain product is going to be delivered, something like that. And this is exactly where QNT comes in clutch. Why? Because their Overledger technology actually allows these kinds of complex multi-chain smart contracts to actually happen, not just on one blockchain, but across many blockchains. Now, the second important key takeaway from Sibos 2025, I think, was about coexistence, because it's very important to note that we are not really going to get in a situation where, for example, it's going to be, I don't know, maybe CBDCs versus stable coins versus tokenized deposits. No, all of them will actually exist together, but each and every single one of them probably is going to serve different purposes. And again, that is the perfect setup for QNT. Why? Because if we are heading into a world with a bunch of separate digital asset networks, well, okay, we have to. This is important. We have to have something that connects them all, something that makes them interoperable. And well, this is literally the definition of Overledger. Now, the third important point from Sibos, I think, was about interoperability. And this is, I think, the heart of everything, because for digital finance to actually work, all these new shiny systems, including, for example, stablecoins, CBDCs, tokenized deposits, and even old banking networks, they need to talk to each other perfectly. And we do actually have examples like this in other areas. And think about, for instance, how internet actually needed shared standards like TCP/IP to connect every single thing together. Without that layer, nothing is going to work smoothly. And that layer in the blockchain space, I think, is going to be probably Overledger and even Swift themselves. They are literally the biggest player in global payments, and they are now admitting this. You see, they are trying to position themselves as an orchestrator that connects all kinds of digital assets. And again, this is exactly what Quant has been waiting for many years. Interoperability is their whole mission, and Mr. Verdian is basically pointing out that the biggest challenge in finance today is the exact problem that Quant was created to solve from day one. Next up, we have to talk about regulation, because a few years ago, regulation was actually seen as a roadblock, and I do remember those days. But now the story, I think, is a bit different, and regulation is actually speeding things up, because frameworks like, for example, Europe's MiCA and also US's Genius Act now are giving banks and institutions the confidence that they needed to move forward with digital assets at a scale. And that is great news for QNT, because their whole approach has always been about working with regulators and existing systems, not really against them. And they are not trying to replace banks or governments. None of that nonsense. They are just trying to connect them all safely and very much in a compliant way. So right now seems like that things definitely are going well for them. And the final point of Sibos 2025 and the big takeaway, I think, has to be about the timeline. You see, this isn't actually something far off anymore. No, real systems are actually going live right now as we talk about in UK, Europe, Australia, and many other countries, and transaction volumes are indeed exploding. Gilbert Verdian's message is very much clear. The change isn't actually now coming, it is already here. And for institutions, that means one single thing. Let's move really, really fast. Otherwise, we are going to fall behind big time. So to wrap all this up, I think this article basically confirms that the world is heading straight into quant territory, and the problem the industry is now trying to solve is interoperability, scalability, and compliance, and these are all exactly what Overledger was built for. So I think the future for quant is absolutely bright, and these are the important reasons for why I am so bullish on this project. And if you got time, I would actually highly suggest to give these articles a read yourselves. You are going to find a lot of very important, fascinating points in it, and maybe that is going to cause you not necessarily panic sell during a crashing hour. And I think you know what I'm talking about. If you believe on the project that you invest, well, okay, by a very small dip, you're not really going to be panicking. Maybe even you are going to see it as a decent buy opportunity. And if you have bought the dip, I think you are probably now up big time. So I love that for you. Now, having said all that, let's go on the live chart and see what is happening in the short term. Okay, here we are, and I actually want to spend a couple of minutes of this part talking about this very important box, because in case you forgot, we actually drew this box about 6 days ago, and the idea was that time analysis suggests most likely in this period of time, we are going to hit the low of our correction in QNT. And what happened? Yup, right in the middle of this time period, we actually did hit the low of our correction, in my opinion. Now, this is actually the very important point about time analysis that I wanted to make, because it's very important to understand time analysis is not really as glamorous as you all think. And based on time analysis only and only, we weren't able to predict how much of a strong move on the downside are we going to get. And there was also a very reasonable chance that this period of time, maybe it wasn't actually going to work, and time analysis maybe in this case was wrong. The point that I'm trying to make is this: time analysis is basically like every single other method of analysis. It's going to work, sure, but it's going to work 6 out of 10 times. And that means there are going to be at least 4 out of 10 times that you are going to get it wrong. Sure, this can be a helpful tool in your arsenal, but please do not make such a big deal out of time analysis, okay? It's not really that much of a big deal. Now, let's talk about the structures in here a little bit. And if you remember the last time that we talked about QNT, it was literally the moment that we got this crash down followed by this bounce back, and the idea was that odds are we are actually going to recover from here, but give it a little bit of time. And surprisingly, I'm actually a big fan of a V-shaped recovery in here. However, even that is going to take some time. I'm gonna say probably a bit longer than this one. Now, in terms of this chart specifically from KuCoin, you know what, let's actually go on Binance's chart and see where are the shadows. As you can see, we wicked all the way down here to about the $50 region. And it's very important to note that this chart is QNT USDT. Now, why do we care about this? Because if you watched any of my last couple of videos, you know that based on the reports, I fully believe that there are some shenanigans going on in Binance. And if you want to completely ignore this shadow in your analysis and you want to say maybe we have hit our final low somewhere around these areas, I think you actually do have a decent argument to do so. Why? Okay, it's very important to understand that there are some slight differences between USDT and USD, and generally the USD market is like much deeper than USDT market. And in times like this, when you are having like once in a 10-year crashing event, you are going to see the effects of that. Why? Because if the USDT market was actually quite deep, we wouldn't have gotten this strong shadows. Don't believe me? Okay, here's an example for you. Let's check out this time QNT USD chart on Coinbase. And as you can see, there we go. We don't even have like a 20% shadow. We do not have literally any shadows at all. And the low of our correction is right in here about $82. Now, the question is, does this affect our analysis? In my view, absolutely yes. Let's go on Binance's chart, maybe go on H4 time frame. No, let's actually go on our own chart from KuCoin, excuse me. You see, in Quant, the idea was that we are having maybe, excuse me, there we go, from this point, 5 wave up into a wave 1, correction for wave 2, and what's next? Great move up into wave 3, 4, 5. However, if I just hide everything, as you can see, in this phase down, if you want to count this shadow, we actually took this important slow down here about $59. And this 1-2 scenario, again, if you want to go according to this chart, is absolutely invalidated. However, for the reasons that we talked about in the last couple of videos, I do not want to consider this thing, and I want to go according to Coinbase's chart and argue, you know what, we are still looking absolutely bullish, and I do not believe that anything in this area has changed, and most likely we are having a wave 1 correction for 2, and I do believe we are going to get a beautiful move up into wave 3 and 4 and 5, and I'm gonna stick with this scenario as long as I'm not proven otherwise. So as you can see, the recent phase down, if you were on Binance and you had some leverage positions open, okay, I feel for you, you probably lost your money, but overall, I don't really think this is going to affect our analysis a whole lot, since I believe those shadows absolutely did not happen naturally. So I do think we should ignore them. Having said that, let's go on 15-minute time frame and see what is going on in here based on Coinbase's chart. You see, if you want to be bullish in here, you can have many different counts, but here is one that I do like a little bit because it does keep me on the ground. I can tell you, this is a wave 1, this is a wave 2, wave 3, 4, another move up into our wave 5, and I have checked the rules already. This can be a leading diagonal in form of a wedge structure, and I'm really hoping it's going to be into a wave 1, 2, and then a good bounce back into wave 3, 4, 5 in order to complete our V-shaped recovery. Now, as you can see, if you want to go according to this scenario, you have to say this 5 wave up is soon going to come to an end. And what are we going to have next? Maybe a bit of a small move on the downside, but pay attention. This, in my view, is going to be kind of a slow and choppy one. And I'm actually going to give this move about 72 hours to maybe maximum 5 days to play out. Why do I believe this period of time can be, again, can be a bit significant? Because tomorrow banks are going to be open and we are going to see, are we going to get some weakness in a stock market or not? If not, and if in S&P 500 we are going to once more bounce back and continue our uptrend, okay, odds are in the crypto market as well, and specifically Bitcoin, we are going to see something like that as well. And in quant, at that point, maybe this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in form of a wedge is not happening, and that leads me to maybe a bit of a more bullish scenario. You see, you can also say this is 1, this is 2, and then good move up into wave 3, 4, 5, which on a higher degree is going to be into this wave 3 and 4 and 5. So this scenario suggests we are having a 1, 2, meaning soon we are actually going to enter an extension phase. The other scenario suggests in the short term, we're going to get a move down. Is there a way for us to figure out which scenario might be in play? At the moment, nope, not really. But again, I would like to suggest to pay full attention to two very important things. Number one, pay attention to what's going to happen in the next 48 hours for the reasons that we talked about earlier. And number two, pay attention to this important line right in here, because if this is actually a leading diagonal in form of a wedge, we shouldn't really get a break of this line. And for example, from here, maybe after having another small move up, we are going to witness some sort of a choppy move down. On the other hand, though, if we end up getting a break of this thing with authority, followed by that do a very shallow pullback and then get a continuation of the move up, okay, at that point, count on that 1-2-1-2 scenario to be in play, meaning what? Yep, the V-shaped recovery is going to really kick in, and probably in a span of 2 or 3 days, we are going to completely cover the recent phase down, starting from the highs about $101, $102. So as you can see, overall in QNT, I do like to be still optimistic. I do not believe that because of the recent shadows that we got in Binance, we are going to be overwhelmingly bearish. In fact, if you look at this chart from Coinbase, you literally understand that nothing has changed in this region. So there isn't really a whole lot to be worried about in my view. And by the way, I forgot to tell you this. If you are expecting a move down in order to fill the gaps that were created as a result of the bounce back that we got, for instance, in Binance's chart happening way too fast, may I suggest think again, because it's very important to note. Once more, I'm going to repeat myself. These shadows weren't actually created naturally. So I do not believe we are going to have one of these at least anytime soon. And the main reason for it is this. You see, in here, in QNT, according to Binance's chart, we got from the highs to about the lows, about a 40% move down. Now, if you want to check out the QNT USDT chart, we got about a 55% move down, I think. And that means even the people who had, let's say, a 1 to 2 leverage positions open, they actually got liquidated as well. And in my view, there is literally no open leverage positions in here anymore. And that means what? Yup, we are probably not going to see a strong liquidation events anytime soon. Sure, give me like a 500 to 700, even $1,000 QNT. And at that point, okay, absolutely fair enough. We can get some strong moves on the downside. But for now, nope, not anytime soon. And I hope I explained everything well and you understood what is going on in Quant's price chart. Anyway, if you found any value in my content, I would really appreciate if you like this video and consider subscribing to my channel and follow me on Twitter. And if you want more, maybe you want a complete analysis for your own specific crypto, or maybe you want to learn some decent TA in order to be able to make good money in the markets, you can become a member and ask me anything you want. And until the next update, I hope you have a wonderful time with your family and loved ones. Goodbye.